Welcome to Kenny's Cantina, eating in style on the road. I want to apologize for my delay in getting a new episode out. The end of the semester was extremely busy, and I didn't have time to put an episode together. This was the busiest semester I've had in years. I was cooking, though. I even cooked my fideo from Season 3, Episode 1 for one of my classes. They loved it. See what I'm up to between episodes. Follow me on Facebook and on Instagram. I've been cooking lobster that I had flown in from Maine and working on various shrimp dishes. Well, another graduation is in the books, and it's time to hit the road. Boy, do I need to stretch my travel legs. I'm heading south to visit my sister and mom. At 91, it's always good to see her. It's a 3-night trip on the road, and I took advantage of free camping along the way. Cabela's and Bass Pro Shop parking lots for a couple of the nights, and then a beautiful horse farm in Virginia that was close to Natural Bridge State Park that provided the opportunity to go on a hike to see the natural wonder of the bridge. Shenandoah Valley is a wonderful part of Virginia, so if you go through that area, be sure and check things out. Now, comfort food, we all love it. It's the perfect time for a comfort food episode. My meatloaf will give you that warm feeling that comes with comfort food. This meatloaf is a tasty, rich take on the classic. It's easy to make, and in an hour of cooking, you'll have a treat for you and your guests. There are a couple of tricks I use that make the meatloaf moist, deep in flavor, and unique. Let's make one up. Prep time for this is about 20 minutes, and then cooking time is 60 minutes. What we're making today will serve 6 to 8 people. You can store this in the fridge for a week, or you can freeze it for 6 months. Now, the ingredients for the meatloaf, we're going to need 2 pounds of ground beef, 1/2 sweet onion, 1/2 green pepper, 4 celery stalks, 2 tablespoons of tomato paste, 3 tablespoons of Worcestershire sauce, 2 tablespoons of minced garlic, 2 teaspoons of onion powder, 1 teaspoon of garlic powder, a teaspoon of salt, a teaspoon of pepper, 2 teaspoons smoked paprika, 1/2 cup of breadcrumbs or crumble crackers, and 2 eggs. Now for the topping, you're going to need a 12-ounce can of tomato paste, 2 tablespoons of Worcestershire sauce, 1 teaspoon of smoked paprika, a 1/2 teaspoon of onion powder, a 1/2 teaspoon of garlic powder, and a container of fried onions. So to start with, we need to crumble ground beef into a mixing bowl. I like to use 90% lean ground beef. This helps to keep the meatloaf from getting greasy. In the grocery stores back in Philly, they sell a meatloaf mix that is ground beef, ground veal, and ground pork. And I know many people blend meats in their meatloaf, but I prefer all beef. I find it gives a savory, rich flavor that you really don't get when you blend meats. All right, so I've got this all broken up into my mixing bowl. Now let's dice some onions. Get these all diced up pretty fine. Let me put that into the ground beef and take my hand and mix that up. Take the green pepper. Let me slice that in half and get this all diced up pretty fine. Put that in there. Start mixing this up. Now, onions and green peppers, they're pretty standard for meatloaf. So it's kind of the staple of it. Now, here's one of my twists. I like to add celery to the meatloaf mixture. Celery is an underused veggie, in my opinion. It adds so much flavor to a dish. Now, in Cajun cooking, celery is a staple, and it's part of the Cajun trinity of onion, green pepper, and celery that forms the basis of most Cajun dishes. If you want to cook up some tasty Cajun dishes, see Season 1, Episode 9 for my gumbo, and Season 2, Episode 5 for my dirty rice dish. Okay, let's dice the celery stalks. That all diced up. Okay, let me add that to the ground beef. And let's mix that all up good. Now next we're going to add tomato paste. Let me open up the can, and I'm going to use 2 tablespoons for in the meatloaf, and we'll set the rest of the can aside that we'll use in the topping. And let's get the Worcestershire sauce. Go for the minced garlic. Okay, let's get that mixed up now. You notice I'm mixing between every few vegetables or ingredients here. It's kind of all the process. You want to make sure that the meat gets kneaded well during the course of this. Okay. Now let's go to the onion powder and the garlic powder, salt, black pepper, and let's add some smoked paprika. The smoked paprika gives the dish a more earthy and savory taste, so I like that. And then let's measure out the breadcrumbs. And let me crack a couple eggs and just throw those on top. And let's get this mixed really well. All the ingredients are in there, so I'm going to work the meat to make sure it's well mixed and that it's all sticking together. And I don't overly knead it because it makes the ground beef way too crumbly, and I like the moistness of it when it's a little bit looser. All right, let me transfer this into a casserole dish, and I'm going to shape this into a log. Now you can also use a loaf pan for cooking, but I don't have one in my RV, and I found that cooking the meatloaf in a casserole dish allows for some of that grease to move away from the meatloaf, so it's not quite as greasy. So, all right, we got a nice loaf. Let me set that aside. And let me pull out another mixing bowl here, and we're going to mix up the topping. So let me spatula out the remaining of the tomato paste out of that can. Now you often see ketchup as a topper on meatloaf. The ketchup has a lot of sugar in it, so it sweetens the meatloaf some. I'm looking for a more savory taste in my meatloaf, so I opt for tomato paste for a more intense flavor without the sweetness. Now to the tomato paste, I'm going to mix in some Worcestershire and some smoked paprika, onion powder, and garlic powder. All right, let me mix this well. And adding these ingredients to the topping just really adds a lot of flavor. All right, now that that's well mixed, I'm going to take the spatula and I'm going to spread this out evenly over the top of the meatloaf. Okay, I have good coverage down on the sides a little bit. Now I've preheated my oven to 350, and I'm going to put this in here. All right, and I'm going to set the timer for 30 minutes. Okay, and we'll let that go for 30 minutes. All right. Where's my button? Okay, stop. Okay, there we go. So it's been there for 30 minutes. Oh, and it's smelling so good in here. Let me take it out. Oh, that's looking good. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is take the fried onions and I'm going to spread that out on top. This is one of my tricks. The fried onions give a unique flavor and a little crunch to the dish. And people seem amazed by this little twist, and it's so easy to do. All right, so I've got that spread out. I didn't use quite the whole box. All right, let's put it back in the oven for another 30 minutes. Let me set the timer again. Now, what I did for a more even cooking in the RV oven is when I put it back in, I rotated it. So let's let this go for 30 minutes. Okay, 30 minutes are up. Oh man, tell you what, it smells so good in here. Let me set this out. All right, this is going to be so good. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to let this set for 10 minutes and kind of rest, and then it'll be ready to serve. So let's give it 10 minutes. Set the timer again. Okay, it's been 10 minutes, and now it is ready to slice. Here we go. And I'm going to actually take this out of the pan and put it on my cutting board so it's easier to slice. And let me take a couple slices. Oh, it's so juicy. All right, let me grab a fork. Oh, man, what great flavor. So rich and deep in flavor. And I love the savory taste that you get with this meatloaf. All the ingredients they all blend so well, and the tomato base topping complements the meat, and you got a little bit of crunch on the top. I love comfort food. And I'm going to take the last little bit of onions here and just split those on top, just for a little added touch. All right. So for serving recommendations, this is great as a main course. And mashed potatoes and green beans are the perfect complements for any comfort food. And then also, I really like it cold on toast as a sandwich the next day. Oh, it tastes good. Now, tips for this dish. I use 90% lean ground beef to reduce the amount of grease in the meatloaf. And the celery, boy, it adds a lot of flavor, so don't skip it. And then the smoked paprika gives you just a hint of smokiness. And you can always add the fried onions later in the process if you don't want them cooked quite so much, so you could put them on top at 15 minutes rather than what I did at 30 minutes. It's your preference on how crispy and all you want those fried onions. So thanks for making meatloaf with me today. I know you're going to love the great savory, rich flavor of this dish. Now it's time for the Q&A. I love this part of the show. Today's questions are in response to my sesame chicken episode. It was a big hit. One viewer, Joyce, made it up and sent me a picture. Her and her husband, Jim, thoroughly enjoyed their sesame chicken. Now, I can't get to everyone's question, but I try to get to as many as I can. So let's get to the mail. Starting off, Warren from Connecticut asks, is your dish any different than takeout as far as the taste goes? Are they both the same? Warren, thanks for watching and for your question. This is an interesting question in that often when you try to replicate a dish at home, it doesn't quite come out the same. In the case of my sesame chicken, all my taste testers thought it was very similar to the taste that is in a Chinese restaurant. So yes, Warren, I would say it is the same. Bobby from Florida asks, my wife and I had a question about sesame chicken and General Chow's chicken. She said they are both the same but seasoned differently. Is that true? So what is the difference between sesame chicken and General Chow's chicken? Hi, Bobby. Your wife is correct. They are essentially the same dish with different seasonings. The big difference is in the flavor profile of each dish. Sesame chicken is sweet without much spicy heat. General Chow's is also sweet, but it's traditionally a more spicy dish. So if you like heat, go for the General Chow's. I hope this clarifies things, Bobby. Now, Gail from New Orleans asks, if you had to choose one over the other, which would you choose and which one is easier to make? Sesame chicken or orange chicken? Hey, Gail, thanks for your question. Apart from the different sauces, traditional orange chicken is stir-fried, while sesame chicken is fried. So from a practical standpoint, not having to go through the steps of frying the chicken, in my opinion, make orange chicken easier to make. Both are good, but if you're looking for ease, go with the orange chicken. Now, these past two questions lead us to Paul from Utah's question. Kenny, it's not so much a question rather than an opinion. I always find it a bit amusing how Chinese American restaurants pad their epic menus by in every permutation of every ingredient and sauce in their repertoire. Then they add or subtract one ingredient to make it their special separate dish that's different than anyone else. Is changing the ingredients to make it different than the original really that important? I know that you do that in a lot of your dishes. So with that in mind, and you being a cook, tell me if you're on the same page with me. Whatever happened to Grandma's favorite recipe? Love to hear what you have to say. Paul, thank you for your observation. I'm with you on minor changes to recipes to create new dishes. As you mentioned, I often make minor adjustments to come up with alternative dishes. Depending on how you adjust ingredients, you can come up with many variations that truly have different flavors. This can also give you some variety of utilizing leftovers. For instance, the meat from my shredded beef tacos season 2, episode 8, can be used in a variety of dishes, and the flavor profile changes dramatically when used differently and gives you some variety. The basic shredded beef taco gives you a deep flavored taco. Put the meat on a roll with some provolone and serve it with au jus for a great French dip. Now you can take that meat and cook it with my birria sauce from season 2, episode 9, and this changes the flavor into a more spicy dish. Or you can mix it with a marinara sauce from season 2, episode 10 for a hearty Italian Sunday gravy. The point I'm trying to make is that minor adjustments of spices or ingredients can totally change a basic dish. So it might seem that the Chinese restaurant is padding their menu, but depending on the changes they make, it can make a whole new dish. Now finally, Donna from Denver asks, I, like many of us who are trying to watch calories and looking for a more health-conscious meal, what's healthier, sesame chicken or General Chow's? Donna, I'm not a nutritionist, and like you, I try to watch some calories. My research shows that both have approximately the same calories, about 325, 330 for a 4-ounce serving. Now, Chinese dishes like these are really pretty high in sodium. Typically, we think Chinese food is healthy, but it's not always the case when you start using different sauces. So from my standpoint, I don't eat it very often and just try to enjoy it when I do. I hope this gives you some insight, Donna, and thanks for your question. Thanks for all the great questions. I look forward to answering more in my next episode. And speaking of the next episode, you are going to love it. I'll be sharing with you a fantastic, refreshing summer dish, Bloody Mary shrimp salad. This dish is a great addition to a picnic. It's loaded with flavor and is light, so it's perfect for the dog days of summer. So stay tuned for this delightful recipe. I want to thank my meatloaf tasters, Jason and Fran, and I want to thank all of y'all for watching and cooking with me. You're the reason I share my recipes. Keep up with me between episodes, follow me on Facebook and Instagram, and be sure to check out my website, kennyscantina.com, for all my past shows and recipes. Also, a special thanks to IBC Productions and Roadhog Media Network for getting my show out there. Thanks again, and see y'all on the road.